Hey y'all, welcome back. This is episode 3 of The Elements with Conscientious Cosmos, the elements through astrology. This time we will be talking about the element air and, what about it? Some chemical reactions that it might be having, how it relates to our thoughts, our communication, our spirit, our consciousness, all of the things. I hope you guys are doing well today. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate you so much. And let me just reground myself because I just had some amazing opportunities come through today. And I hope that with this energy that I'm grounding and also channeling through this, that eventually some good opportunities will be coming through for you as well. So let me just reground myself and then we'll get started. So the zodiac signs that are associated with air are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Everybody has these signs in their chart. Won't lead too much into it because I just want to talk about the element of air, and as I expand this channel more, we'll be able to talk about the specifics of those signs, like Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. I started doing that in the first take of this video, but then I was like, let me allow for the mystery, So, the scientific parallels with the element of air, apart from it being the realm of thought and communication, are the fact that in physics, air represents the gases and the movement of particles. So, things that you would grab from the air, and also conductivity. So the energy that is created through that. So, air is a necessary part of the equation of conducting fire and things like that, which is a very energetic substance. So, of course, everything's energy, but yeah. And the other beautiful aspect of this is that air connects all other elements. Again, I just mentioned fire, the oxygen of the air, it feeds that. The air, it creates weather patterns with the water, and we get the beautiful, ebb and flow of the ocean, and it also erodes the earth over time. And that was something that I mentioned in the earth video of, like, sometimes when you're at the beach, if you look close enough, then you can see how the wind gusting against the cliff side of the beach is actually eroding it. But the weather patterns that it creates with water and how it pushes the tides closer, while it's eroding that, it's also building that land mass back up. So it's a beautiful co-creation. Everything's cyclical. It's always abundant. Don't be too worried about it eroding the earth over time, because there's just nothing more powerful than these elements themselves, and no substance could take that away, but a power that's just as powerful as the earth itself. I am never worried. Anyways, and that's something we'll talk about with the water episode in regards to, different elements being abundant, and, sometimes we see them go away. It seems like they're going away, and we kind of have this scarcity mindset with it, but there's something that is just very replenishing when you think about it from an abundant mindset in regards to, like, okay, it's always around us. It's never going away, and it can make you feel very secure in that matter. So, yes, let's talk about air in the astrological houses a little bit. So, the third house is known as the house of siblings, short distance travel, communication. It's the natural house in Western astrology associated with the sign of Gemini, the third sign in the zodiac. So yeah, very, very light, playful energy, exceptional communication can be found here with people who have air in the third house, whether it be Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius. Very intellectually curious and information gatherers. So you guys are definitely the archivists of our generation for sure, or whatever generation. And then compare that to the 11th house, which is also a kind of like social house in regards to it is maybe not like, your neighbors is also associated with the third house, or short distance travel, or your siblings, or your closer community with, the charts in astrology, the lower half being, parts of your life that are a bit more not as seen with the public. So, friends, maybe not friends, but siblings, family, neighbors. And the 11th house would be, groups that are a bit more widespread. So like any online groups or online forums that you're a part of. It could also be, friends or groups that are, that live far away, or things like that. And also, yeah, just the ones that have a bit more space around them, I would imagine the 11th house to be. So with air in the 11th house, what that's attributed to is social innovation. So you're not just changing things within your, family home or within your neighborhood. You're changing things on a like societal scale, and you're able to have this influence, which and influence is, it's not just like influencer type thing. It's more of like and indoctrinating people. It's like giving people bits and pieces that allow them to, change their own membrane and way of processing things, and they're able to formulate that in their own way. It's not like indoctrinating somebody, hopefully not, and them becoming some version of you. They're still themselves because they have their own DNA and their own frequency and their own resonance, just like I do. So again, like, it's still very community oriented with air in the 11th house, but again, it's not as close, and there's a sense of like more like visionary type energy of, changing things on a kind of mass scale, dare I say. And it can be idealistic, but I think my projection of idealism in the past has been like, oh, delusional, like, don't think of that because it's a little too crazy sort of thing. But this YouTube channel, honestly, astrology, when I first met it, seemed like a very idealistic subject. But now that I've been able to associate myself with the elements a bit more, and how they interact with this divine language of astrology, idealism, honey, it can be the thing that saves you, it can be the thing that frees you, it can be the thing that inspires you to go out there and share your gifts and your talents with others. It's amazing. It's amazing. So shout out to people with air in the 3rd and the 11th house. Y'all have some really powerful talents for sure. So air with the planets. Let's talk about air and Mercury. So that is definitely seen with the relationship of Gemini being a sign that's ruled by the planet Mercury. And what we'll see here is an acceleration of mental processes. I have a lot of Gemini placements, so I totally relate. And verbal agility. So you're very agile. You're, the best way I've heard it described, and I still laugh at this. I still laugh at this, and I say this, I swear, at least once a week, especially somebody that's been and like does a lot of sales in like my past job, experiences, and not just job experiences, but like volunteering experiences, or like pitching an idea to a friend or something like that. Like, the best way I've heard it described, Gemini and Mercury placements are like you're able to sell a broken wand to a wizard, and not in the sense of like duping them, which could be a way of looking at it, because I think of Mercury and I think of Loki from Marvel, who's a trickster, and Mercury is known as a trickster in different realms of its mythology. So, but I also see it as like being able to turn something that seems so like average and turn it into this thing that somebody can't live without. And I think that's sales in and of itself, for sure. So taking what somebody might see as being average, and not everybody is going to resonate. That's one thing that air Mercury placements can, have a good way of teaching people. I'm like, if I don't sell it to this one person, I'm gonna get to the next one, just because, like, just very not getting stuck in the moment, on to the next sort of thing. So yeah, able to process that information a lot quicker and not get bogged down into certain thinking. And that might be the shadow work that I had to do personally, as somebody that has, all elements in the chart, but I have more air elements. So I noticed that, like, the shadow work that I had to do was making sure that I'm not, bogging my mental down too much, because staying up in that mental plane, oh my gosh, it can be exhausting. It'll give you headaches. It'll, it could sometimes put in this fear mindset sometimes when it's not necessary. And that is, the higher, divinity of air as an element is like you're connected to everything. You are God's consciousness experiencing itself. You are the universe's consciousness experiencing itself. It's scientifically proven that humans are, descendants of stardust, that living things on this planet are descendants of stardust that came about that formed from energy to matter billions of years ago. It is, it's never necessary to implant some sort of fear or lapse of faith within yourself, when you know in your intuition and your gut feeling that, that's the right thing. And when you're doing diaphragmic breathing, where are you sending this breath? Where are you sending this oxygen that's refilling itself into your gut and into your intuition? And I think that's a great understanding of the relationship that water has with air, in regards to air kind of moving the currents of the water in our body, and the water of the ocean, and the water of our intuition. It's a really, really beautiful relationship when you see it on any plane. So that's air and Mercury. Air and Uranus. Uranus as a planet is a very... It's very revolutionary. I'm trying to think, was it... Oh my goodness, I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of the story of this astrologer centuries ago who was discovering the planet Uranus, and oh crap, I deleted that app. That's okay. And what happened was he discovered the planet Uranus and also just solidified its transit, because he knew that the planet was going to be making this, specific transition and aspect at this particular time. And he was just, he had planned it out maybe months or weeks in advance. And then as it got closer to that particular day, he's like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen, but something elemental is going to happen that signifies this transit of Uranus. Yeah, it was Uranus. And what happened was lightning struck, and lightning struck his house, and it disintegrated it. It burned to the ground. And, you know, especially at that time where resources aren't, you know, as quick as they are now, you know, somebody would think, oh my God, my life is over. You know, maybe the average person that wasn't, you know, tied to, you know, divine consciousness like this astrologer was, and, you know, sort of this understanding as an astrologer of like, okay, everything happens for a reason. You don't even have to be an astrologer. You could just be connected to divine consciousness and God's consciousness to know that everything happens for a reason. So when this astrologer was asked by somebody, you know, like, how are you feeling? Like, like, how do you feel about your house being, you know, disintegrated and struck by lightning? He said something along those lines of like, you know, everything happens for a reason, you know, like, I'm quite content with what happened. The person was just like, what? Like, what? But the astrologer was like, I just made this grand discovery that was beautiful and amazing, and this is exactly what I wanted to happen in some sort of sense. You know, it's greater than my house getting, you know, burned down and electrocuted. It was a solidification of like, that he was truly connected to divine consciousness and was able to communicate through his energetics and his resonance and his frequency and his certainty and his faith that this was happening. So that in and of itself, it was very revolutionary for me to hear that. I was like, I love that. For me, as somebody that was learning about this, I was like, yes, everything happens for a reason. This is sparking revolutionary thinking. This is giving me sudden insights. This is giving me technological innovation. I'm going to be doing something great with this. And I'm sure the same was for that astrologer. It's worth looking that up to find out that astrologer's name. You know, maybe you would, and you know, maybe learn some other aspects of the story that would give you good insights. But yeah, that's air and Uranus in my mind. Definitely a revolutionary. I also think of Aquarius as well. I feel like I don't know if too much about those outer planets in regards to like what sign it rules, but let's figure that out. Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, I should have just gone with my intuition, because I have Uranus in Aquarius, and it checks out. I like revolutionary thinking. I like sudden insights. I like acting on them, especially. I like creating the masculine container for those, you know, revolutionary thinking and sudden insights. It wasn't just like, you know, when I started thinking about this gardening stuff that I'm doing in my life, it wasn't just like, oh, you know, I like gardening. It didn't just remain within my, you know, mental plane. It was something that I ended up creating, you know, turning from energy into matter. I went and I started volunteering at a garden. Management changes happens. I end up managing the garden. You know, I'm do shipping and handling for this, you know, luxury plant company, and I learn how to, you know, maintain a greenhouse sort of thing. So it's not just sparking revolutionary thinking, it's about acting on that as well and putting the action behind it, so that it doesn't just, because Uranus it's a fairly like big planet, like, and when you have all of these thoughts within your mental plane that are so like kind of hard to simply see within your mind, you're kind of forced into, or you feel better, I should say, maybe not forced, you can do whatever you want, but you might feel better, I know I did, actually putting action behind that energy and turning it into matter. You know, it was 6 months ago, maybe less than, that I asked my parents / suggested that we should have a garden in our backyard, and then next thing you know, we're like creating zucchini chips, Parmesan zucchini chips, you know. So it's like, and it's a beautiful thing as well. And technological innovation, it might not just be the, you know, physical things that you're doing. Sure, you can, you know, find innovative things to do with technology. I'm not out here creating or coding or something like that. I don't know if I would be doing that. But there is something to say about, you know, energetic code and the mental code that we have, and the technology that we have within our brain. You know, our brain is a huge technological device that we use every day, whether we're acting from our subconscious or our conscious. So it is something that is a very, very, very energetic. It's very energetic, very potent as well, especially when you harness it in whatever direction you want to. You will get the exact result that you're looking for, no doubt. No doubt. So next I'll move on to Air and Neptune. Hi, Fly. Air and Neptune inspires idealistic concepts, an abstract thinking, and a spiritual connection through intellect. There's a plane going by. Okay. The plane has gone by. I just can't really think when there's a plane going by. It's just so loud. I've had so many downloads come through today that, like, I think this might be the last video. I can't even go and talk about water after this because it's so expansive, and I really want to be in my right mind for that. So this will be my last video. I'll upload this and, you know, continue on with this beautiful life. But let's talk about some of the words here, because we're talking about air and communication and words, and, you know, every word has meaning behind it. Sure, all words are made up, and everybody's going to apply their own meaning behind it because they have their own frequency and resonance. So inspiration looks different to everybody. Idealism looks different to everybody. Abstraction looks different to everybody. And spiritual things look different to everybody. Connection and intellect looks different to everybody. But where this kind of merges with Neptune is exactly why you're seeing words like idealism, abstract, spiritual. It's because Neptune rules over signs like Pisces, and Pisces is known as a very idealistic sign, very spiritual sign. Water, when you're looking at it from the surface or even underneath it, you know, when you're underwater, let's say you're swimming in a pool and you've got goggles on, and you're swimming in the ocean and you've got goggles on, and you look up to the surface and things kind of look abstract. Maybe there's a bird flying by, or a person, you know, standing over the water, and they're kind of muddled. You don't see them, you know, in their like most like material self version. You're seeing them kind of muddled. Maybe they look a little bit squiggly, kind of like it's a funhouse mirror. That's abstract thinking right there, you know, being able to see things and think of things in a way that people might not be able to see within its material, you know, self. Again, taking energy to form matter requires abstract thinking a lot of the time in your own way. The spiritual connection, again, it comes from Pisces being a very divine sign. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. I don't know if I should say that right now, but maybe when I talk about Aquarius. And this connection, it comes through that communication for sure. So the spiritual connection, you know, I have a lot of Aquarius signs, let's say. My Neptune is in Aquarius, so I'm able to connect the spirit through this communication and serve that to you, and it is also muddled into my intellect. I'm looking at these notes, but I'm also taking things that I've learned over the last 4 years, and also things that I've learned over the last, 20-something years of my life, and funnel that into something that you can take away into your day. And also, high plane, it inspires these idealistic concepts as well. So before I started this channel, it was a very idealistic concept. I'm like, oh, I was going to watch this, but again, I had this like most beautiful meeting with one of my favorite coaches. And what she said was like, when you're having these thoughts that feel like limiting beliefs that kind of make you, shoulder in and not show your truest self, plug back into the divine, plug back into your intuition, plug back into the thing that makes you feel light and airy, like even when you're grounded, when you're connected to the divine, you don't feel heavy, you don't feel muddled, you don't feel scared, you just feel ready, you just feel able, you're willing to do things just because you're willing, and you know that you have to do them, and you know that this is your gift to the world, and you know that this is your purpose, this is your offering, this is your offering to, the ancestors that got you here, and this is your offering to, the future generations. That's what this coach would say in regards to like just trusting your gut and allowing things to flow like the wind. The wind doesn't stop when it hits a wall, it goes around. Same with water. It just doesn't allow these blockages, the walls, the limiting beliefs to stop it from finding another way, from thinking about something in a different abstract way, so that it can continue through this connection. It can continue through revolutionary thinking, sudden insights, technological innovation, idealistic concepts. When people were creating the iPhone, they certainly didn't let anything stop them. They had a final vision in mind. I'm sure certain people thought that they were crazy, but the next thing you know, this is $1 trillion market. And we're all profiting off of it. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. I'm able to, share my revelations with people and kind of activate this collective consciousness by just not allowing anything to stop me. I could say all the limiting things that I had today in my mind, but I was like, no, I want to get this information out today. I feel called to do it. I feel inspired to do it. I feel reinvigorated by thinking about doing it and by sharing this with people. If there's any one thing to take away from today's episode, as we're talking about air, is like, find the reroute within your limiting beliefs, within the mistakes that you've made, within the lessons that you've learned. It changed my mind it changed my life, honestly, to think of mistakes not as mistakes, as a bad thing, but as lessons to be learned, as new insights that I had about myself of doing something differently. Maybe the mistakes weren't the mistakes, they were a way of rerouting me. Maybe the mistakes weren't a mistake, maybe it was showing me a different way of doing things. So, yeah, I mean, I'll end it there in regards to its relationship with the planets, but I think that is something that I'm feeling more so in this season of life, of like really, really leaning into my gifts more so and allowing that to be shown. So we'll end it up, we'll close this with the elemental interactions, and we'll start off with fire and air. Already understand fire needs air. It needs it. Fire is hungry for air. Your drive is hungry for the intellect that you have. Your drive is hungry for the breath that you have to pour into it and to allow it to sustain itself. Don't put out your fire. Just breathe more air into it. Breathe more life into it. Don't put it out. Don't pour water over your passions. Turn it into that underwater volcano that I talked about in the previous episodes. Build the earthly container around it, even when you're pouring water over it. And do the damn thing. Allow it to create beautiful islands like Hawaii. Allow it to create beautiful divine things within your life that are going to further hold and support not just you, but anybody that comes within your energetic field. So, earth and air. Air erodes earth. There might be tension here, but it's also all cyclical. Again, I mentioned everything, maybe I did, about everything being abundant, and you know, God and this earth is just going to replenish these resources. You know, the air is going to erode the earth, but the air is also going to push the water back towards that land mass and reform it once again. So air is challenging you to be in that flow state nonetheless. And what it's eroding is what was loose. It is what wasn't serving you anymore. It maybe is like going on into that next stage of life and allowing you to kind of see something new, you know, exfoliating the surface so that your skin can breathe, so that the table looks clean again, that sort of thing. And with earth and air, you see this balancing between ideas and practical implementation. So I know I'm kind of up in the ether with this talk, but the practical implementation out of this is me ending this video and then putting it on YouTube. That's the container. That's the practical implementation of it. I just get to have fun here and be a little, again, up in the ether, just enjoying myself. I'm happy talking about this. I'm not like, oh, I need to get everything right before I come on here and talk about this. I wanted to talk about astrology from an energetic lens and from a lens of somebody who is still a beginner in it of myself. Like, you're just kind of experiencing the journey of me learning about this and experiencing this and incorporating this into my own life. And I hope that brings a sort of authenticity to what I'm sharing and shows you that you can do it for yourself as well. You know, that's the inevitable goal for this this astrology business of mine is to take that authenticity and, you know, average it out for anybody. Show them that authenticity can, you know, inspire other people, whoever, you know, feels in resonance to you, of course. You know, not everybody's going to need the specific medicine that you're providing, because, you know, not everybody is going to react the same and positively to certain medicines. You know, there's certain herbs and certain things that I just cannot eat. I will not eat. But somebody else might find it perfect for them, and that's for them. You know, that's why we have these polarities in the world, and it's just a matter of finding your tribe and finding your people that are going to support you through that. And you know, it just, everything happens for a reason. That's what I come back to every single time. Everything happens for a reason, and there's a beautiful lesson within everything. Lastly is air and water. Mutually enhancing. Water evaporates into air. It blends this emotion with intellect. Again, it also, air, you know, from the reverse, it pushes the water, through the riverbed. It pushes the ebb and flow of the ocean, and you see this beautiful relationship between all four elements. And I don't really have much else to say. I'm just like, that's it. We'll end it here. I'm so up in the ether. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining me for this third video. I'll have that fourth video where we talk about water and the divine feminine and all of the beautiful things surrounding that, how that might be showing up in our current world, how that's showing up within my personal life, and hopefully give you some ideas of how that might be showing up within your personal life. And this is all about harnessing it as well, harnessing your fire, harnessing your grounding and stability, and that nature of birth that the actual earth and the plants are, and harnessing the divine feminine and your intuition and the watery parts of you and your emotion as well, and how you can find the best way to act based off of which plane. It's all about balance. These elements have found a way to balance each other out. How are we doing the same for ourselves in our own life? And not even talking about other people, because we can't control others, but how are we setting that example for the people that we are around? And that embodiment is everything. That balance of embodiment, it's everything. So plug back in to the divine, plug back into the universe's consciousness, to God's consciousness, and recognize that it is you. It is yours. It is yours to harness in the ways that you see fit. I'm here from a space of wanting that growth mindset, so that's what we do over here. We do growth mindset. We do not allow the limiting beliefs and those blocks to stop us from, reaching our highest good. And I think that's what God's consciousness and the universe's consciousness is experiencing itself through us to do just that, is to reroute us as a human collective, as a collective consciousness back to the highest good. So yes, thank you so much once again for joining me for episode 3 of Air. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to comment, give it a comment. I'd love to start, chatting with some of you. You don't have to let me know what you thought. You can do whatever, honestly. I just really enjoy spending time here with you guys, and I really, really hope that your life is going in the direction that you want it to. And if you feel like it isn't, just know that you have all the tools available to you to make it so, and to recenter on that. So yes, have a beautiful rest of your day, of your week, of your night, of your morning, wherever you are watching this, and I will absolutely catch you in the next one. Bye.